Hello and welcome to this video about the wow of the DAO. And the video is to discuss what exactly are DAOs, because that is the main issue, the main problem, that people don't really understand what they are. You ask 10 experts and you get 10 different answers. So I chose to come to Greece because Greece had two types of very successful government. One was the Athenian type of government, which was a democracy. And the other type of government was in Sparta, about 250 kilometers away from here, which was an authoritarian type of oligarchic government. So let's talk first about the Athenian democratic type of government. Well, there were three institutions that this type of government was built on. And one was the Parthenon, which was a temple of Athena, and she represented wisdom and justice. That was the ideal that everybody could aspire to. Then below we had the Agora. The Agora represented the gathering place, or the place where people could congregate to discuss the issues of the day. You could essentially be rubbing shoulders with Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. So you can imagine asking them about what would be the best way to govern society. So that was like the Twitter marketplace of those days, but without the censorship and without the manipulation, which we hope Elon Musk can clean up. Then below this, about 500 meters away, there was the Pnyx. The Pnyx means tightly packed place. Why? Because that's where everybody would meet to vote. It was about 6,000 to 10,000 people, like a medium-sized soccer stadium, and you could actually see who could vote and how they voted. So those were the three institutions. And today also DAOs have those three types of concepts incorporated in them. So let's now go to Sparta and discuss the authoritarian type of government or oligarchic type of government that they had, which really shouldn't bother us too much because we are habituated to accept that totalitarian, authoritarian types of corporations can work out of a democracy. Okay, let's go to Sparta. So this is now Sparta. And I think the best way to describe is, as we said in the last video, the opposite pole of the democratic DAO, or let's say the less autocratic DAO that was in Athens. So what made Sparta so special? Well, at the opposite end of this spectrum of DAOs, we do have the situation where there were two kings. So it wasn't completely autocratic. It wasn't completely centralized. And there was also other groups of influencers that did not make the decision, but they influenced the two kings. It would be sort of like today of being two CEOs. So there was the ephors and there was the assembly, where they would also discuss decisions to be made, and they heavily influenced these kings. So democracy has various shades and spectrums of power, of decision-making. Nothing is a 100% a democracy. Very difficult to achieve that, because it means one vote for one person directly involved, and on the other side of the spectrum, it could mean just two people that would vote. Today, we have not direct democracy, we have what's called a representative democracy. So what we do is we elect somebody to represent us. So we don't actually make the laws or vote for the laws ourselves. And this is, I think, very important to understand about DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. So on the Athens side, we have completely or almost 100% decentralized decision-making. And on this end of the spectrum here at Sparta, we had essentially very centralized decision-making. P.S. The United States is not a democracy. It's a republic. Doesn't mean it's good or bad, but it's bad if you don't know how your country is governed. We have a unique problem today, globalization. If we wish to have a democratic government across all nations, look at DM25 of Yanis Varoufakis. Now, also, I think it's worthwhile to spend 2 words on what is autonomous and what is automatic. And I think this is something that many people don't understand about DAOs. It's really an unhappy type word, autonomous, because it's more automated organization. What does that mean? What's the difference between automated and autonomous? Well, in automated, you have algorithms that execute a decision. So there's no autonomy, and a smart contract doesn't have autonomy. That's why it's trustful. Because if there's a vote, the algorithm, for instance, if 1,000 people vote and there are 501 who voted in favor, then the algorithm or the process says, if then I will do this. So really it's automated. Really it's a decentralized, automated organization. An autonomous organization would be if I'm driving, like an autonomous driven car, and that's a correct term. If I'm driving and I see a dog in front, should I kill the dog, so not put on the brakes, so I hurt the passengers? An autonomous decision-making process would mean I make that decision as to whether to kill the dog or not to save the passengers. On the other hand, it could be that the driving system sees people crossing the street, and there it has to make a decision. Do I save the people, or do I continue to go ahead? So that's autonomous. An automated system is really, we can trust it because there's no outside influence in the decision-making process. So the smart contract really executes the decision. And this is the key part of a DAO. It automates the decision. In other words, we notice that for the last 100 years, politicians make promises, we vote for them, and once they're in power, they don't execute the decision. And that is the difference in a DAO. We can trust that a decision will be executed. That's a game changer. It means 7 billion people on the planet could be part of one DAO. They could all vote for something, and the DAO will say, I will execute that decision. That's something that today in this type of democracy that we have, human-based or human decision-making, but really human executable decision-making is not possible or has always failed. So let's go back now to Athens and finish this discussion, okay? Ciao. And here we are now back in Athens. So we understood that you could have DAOs created in two different flavors, two different governance flavors, one completely democratic and one completely authoritarian or oligarchic. Essentially, you can have DAOs dialed to be democratic or authoritarian. Dial-a-DAO concept is very important. So you can have a spectrum like Apollo's light spectrum from blue to red, where you can dial the governance across that spectrum. Now, what DAO founders should be very careful about is these three aspects. One is to set high, lofty ideals, a noble vision, a noble mission, because that will help people congregate around an important subject, an important goal. And then also it would be wise to be able to institute a chat similar to Agora, where everybody could discuss, even criticize, but also give suggestions as how to improve the function of the DAO so everybody can have more success. And then, of course, DAO founders have to think about how to institute the voting process, like what it was in the PNIX. Either you had everybody vote, or you would only have a few vote, like it was in Sparta. So that is really what DAOs are about. It's just not simple computer code that runs an organization. These concepts are very important because here in Athens, whole Western society, our $100 trillion economy, was built on these principles, on these three institutions. So you DAO founders now have a possibility to also create another $100 trillion revolution to help bring mankind and lessen their suffering. And that's it for today. Our $1 trillion economy was sparked here. And people say that philosophy in business is not practical.